Hey guys, so we are starting to do some videos that we've promised a few people for a while, and we wanted to share a little bit about our story and how we got to be gluten and dairy free and why we're sharing this information with you. So one thing that it's really important to us is we look back at health decisions we've made, and especially nutritional decisions that we've made since we've been together. We've been together now for 13 years. Oh my gosh.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. So we've been together for 13 years, always been health conscious. Both of us were health conscious when we got together.
Sure.
But we probably a couple times a day now we'll be like, do you remember when we ate such and such and we thought we were so healthy? And now we're mortified because we wouldn't even eat that as like a cheat. Like but it's an evolution. Like it's a complete evolution.
And I was going to say, don't you think that was a part of the process?
Absolutely.
That's where we were ready to take on those changes.
Absolutely. And it's been peeling back an onion.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we want to share some of those things with you guys because we want to share what we've learned. We want to share some of our failures, so that maybe you can learn through that too. I firmly believe in sharing our failures with other people, so that other people can learn.
Yes, and really I think this process started all with Heather, and I think it's really going to be impactful for you to share that process.
Yeah, so
I only say that because I think there's so many people out there that they experience things in their own lives, and if you never hear them, you wouldn't have known how much it could have impacted someone. There's someone else maybe that's in their journey that might hear something that you went through that could really change someone's life, and that information that we're starting to get now is so powerful, and we're seeing the impacts of it. I think it's a fun process to start to share it. So let's go back a while, and you'll have to share the doctors that were talking to you about maybe starting this process to go gluten-free and dairy-free.
Okay, so it took me years, you guys. It took me years to go gluten and dairy-free. The fourth doctor that told me to do it, I finally did it. So it started when we were still living back in Orlando. That was over 3 years ago. I mean, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago that the first doctor told me to do it. And they would listen to my belly and they would hear it making all these gurgling sounds all the time. And now I know that was the dairy for me. I also felt like I was in a fog all the time. I was really tired. I want to cry thinking about it. Target was my happy place, but the idea of walking across Super Target from one end to the other, it terrified me because I was so tired. I was that tired all the time. I've traveled from Florida to Australia and had that jet lag. That did nothing. That was nothing. I've had 2 babies. That was nothing compared to the tired I felt from the gluten. So,
and I could see that.
Yeah. Oh.
I could see that your energy levels were so affected when wanting to be active and wanting to do more, but just feeling like, where was the energy?
Oh, there was none. And
almost it starts to become, and of course from my background with, being in the field of sports psychology and cognitive psychology, so much of the time, sometimes we think it's like, well, maybe I'm just not motivated enough. Maybe there's something wrong with the way my mind's working. I'm just not focused to stay committed to it. And I think in this process, we've learned that unfortunately there are so many things that actually could make it that much more difficult. It's not actually your fault.
Right.
It's not actually that your mind wasn't there or motivated to do it. But some of these things, and the gluten and the dairy, can be big contributors to that fact, cognitively affecting you, and the fog and the energy levels physically. So anyway, continue, but I think that's a big point in how all of this ties together.
Yeah, and I think, when I had the fourth doctor say it to me, I actually said to him, I was like, you were the fourth doctor to tell me this. I'm actually going to do it this time.
So what was your big fear to do it? Because I remember you were like, okay, you didn't think the gluten would be that hard.
No.
Or was it the dairy? There was one of the two you thought wouldn't be so hard.
I didn't think the gluten was going to be so hard. the dairy, okay, so I did this, it was, I think, like December 28th, 3 years ago. It was 2016. We had just moved to Lakewood Ranch, and we typically on a New Year's Eve would sit and have wine and cheese. That was our go-to
and some
date
Marcona
night.
Almonds and a little honey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was our go-to date night.
That was awesome.
And so I did this literally December 28th, I think, of 2016. And I remember we wanted to go out for dinner on New Year's Eve. And I was terrified because I was like, where are we going to go to eat? Nobody's going to be able to do gluten and dairy free. I was freaking out. So we ended up going for sushi. They were like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Great.
no problem.
And so we've learned that most places it's totally cool. We have also learned through experience that it's really important to state your needs and be very clear with people about why it's important that you don't get whatever you need to not get, whether that's peanuts or tree nuts, because our son has a tree nut allergy. If it's gluten or dairy, just to express why, because we had an incident. I got glutened last summer. We were leaving a family outing. I won't say where it was because it'll totally give it away. And as we ate, and we told her we needed gluten-free something, and pretty sure that's not what it was because I was passed out before we had left the parking lot in the car, and I slept like this in the car all the way back and for about 24 hours after. So again, it's that energy, right? So, but anyway, I was terrified about the dairy. I dreamed about cupcakes for about 3 weeks. I still and it's not that hard. It's not difficult. But I will say, there are times when I'm like, everybody's having a Publix cupcake. I just want a Publix cupcake. So. Right.
But anyway. Didn't you also go through some of those concerns with okay, well, what can I have? What can't I have? I think that's probably a big concern for a lot of people because it's wow, to go gluten and dairy free, how many things have gluten and dairy? I will say this, when you first started this journey, maybe there weren't as much available, or restaurants weren't making as big a shift. I don't know if it's just because now we're both gluten and dairy free that we see it. It's kind of I never saw those cars before, but then I bought one. And then every time I'm driving around town, I see my car everywhere, right? So I don't know if it's just because we've made the change, we're seeing more of those products, but you would probably agree, a lot of companies are making that shift to offering more products, gluten-free, dairy-free. Restaurants, that's not an odd thing to walk in and say, do you have a gluten-free, dairy-free menu? And it's here is a allergy-specific menu that will accommodate all your needs.
And let me tell you, Disney World, best place ever.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. So, and that has been a concern for a lot of people. We'll do a whole other video on that.
So if you would make any suggestion to someone who is really wanting to make that shift to gluten-free, dairy-free, what would you say was the biggest thing for you that helped you through that? To manage, it feels like maybe a huge thing to take on.
I would say first, definitely talk to your doctor. Find out if that's...
We're not medical professionals.
Yeah,
we're not. This is just sharing our experience and how we went through it, but we're not giving any medical advice.
Yeah, no. I would say talk to your doctor.
Right.
But if you've got your doctor's okay to do that, I would say Google's your best friend, and reach out to somebody who's done it, and especially somebody in your area that's done it. And we are happy to help in any way. Ryan now is gluten and dairy free, has been for a little over a year now.
Sure.
Why did you switch?
Well, and I was just to add on to what you were saying, to quote our own family doctor, our primary care physician,
who is gluten and dairy free,
who when I went to see him, when I went to see him just this year for my annual, when I had told him I had made that change, in his own words said, there really is no need for gluten or dairy in your diet. And gluten was really something that was really put on to feed the masses. When you think about it, the number of things that have gluten in them and the preservatives, so it can sit on a shelf for a really long time, and again, feed the masses, it becomes very obvious. So, to kind of circle back, I did not make the change originally when you kind of started
No.
this 3-4 years ago.
3 years ago.
Okay, but I will say, even in my own work, I've been working for many years now, over 19 years with professional athletes. And one of the PGA Tour golfers that I was working with was talking to me about an injury he had in his neck. And he said that, he could get it rehabbed, and the gentleman he was working with to rehab it, we actually knew, we were friends with, he was telling him how he can help him just fix the injury, but if he really wants to understand why, getting to the crux of why it happened, he'd have to kind of dig a little deeper. So this tour player said, to me, he goes, I really wanted to figure it out because I can't be playing and constantly dealing with injuries. So long story short, he went through a ton of testing, saw multiple doctors, and what came back was that he had a real severe kind of sensitivity to gluten. And as you start learning the science behind all this, so many of these things inflame our bodies, and the inflammation in your body obviously is not good for you. And if you're a professional golfer and you're having to swing and hit a ton of golf balls to practice and to play a lot, the inflammation will restrict a lot of the movement in your body, and that restriction in his body caused tension on his neck, and then he ended up hurting his neck. So he went on this process to eliminate gluten from his life and totally changed his life. And not only could he finish the rehab for his neck, but had no more issues with flexibility, the restrictions in his golf swing, and it was amazing. And the funny part about the story is his medical doctor actually told him, did he have any tournaments that were in Europe? And he said yes. He actually was going to be flying to Italy first to do a big golf outing, because this client of mine could speak like 6 languages. So he would do a lot of corporate outings and teach to many different countries for a couple hours for the sponsorships. Pretty cool gig. So he was saying he was going to be going to Italy first and then on to a European tour event. And his medical doctor told him, when you land in Italy, the first thing I want you to do is have a huge bowl of pasta. And he looked at his doctor like, are you kidding me? Like, we've gone through this process and I finally eliminated it. Why would I want to do that? And he said, well, I just want you to have it and then just tell me, like, what did you feel afterwards? And so he got off the plane when he landed in Italy. He had a huge bowl of pasta, had zero effect from it. And it kind of freaked him out, but as he explained to me, he goes, well, I was only doing a corporate outing, and then the tournament wasn't for another whole week, so if there was any negative effect, I could maybe get past it. But as he had learned, and what I had learned from him, and in our research, what we have learned is that it's not so much maybe that it's a sensitivity to gluten or a gluten allergy, but it's a sensitivity to how our wheat is grown and harvested in America, because it's very different regulations in European countries and around the world. So obviously the way it's done in Europe and in Italy, how that pasta is made is very different than here in America. And so it wasn't so much that he had that intolerance to gluten so much, but specifically how it is here in the United States.
So tell everybody how it's harvested.
So as we've learned, and you can find all of this online, and I first heard from this PGA golfer who had done all the research, the wheat has to be harvested in a certain state. It has to actually, before it's just harvested, it actually has to be close to a state where it's actually like dying.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not an expert or a farmer to know this process, but in America, for them to get it harvested in this state, they'll spray the wheat with Roundup. Now, not a food grade Roundup. I mean, this is Roundup like you get from Home Depot and you spray it in your driveway to kill a weed.
That has all the warnings on it.
Okay, so those pesticides that are being sprayed on the crops, those same crops that are being fed to animals that are then getting into meats, that then we're consuming. Again, something else I know we'll do another video on with foods, grass-fed beefs and things like that, the importance of that. But you can imagine this goes well beyond just, well, they harvest the wheat and that's been sprayed with pesticides and then I'm eating that bread. Well, it goes beyond that. because that stuff's harvested, and any of the grain that's fed to the animals, then you're eating that as well. And so it's affecting our bodies. So it was kind of interesting to kind of hear those things. And if you've watched any of our videos for the treats, we've now learned about the confectionery glaze.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things we can talk
What's
about.
the glaze made out of?
Confectioner's glaze is made of like an insect goo.
Yes. Gross. We learned that
Shiny,
through...
It's a shiny glaze on chocolate.
Yeah, because we got the huge chocolates, and they have a chocolate-covered nuts, and they're not shiny, they don't look pretty, but we learned why that shiny confectionery glaze is gross. But it's in so much that we consume. So
we've learned a lot, and so we want to share those things that
Yeah.
we've learned to help other people to maybe improve upon your lives if that's the way you're going. If it's not the way you're going, it's totally cool.
So a year ago, I made the change.
Yeah.
We decided to do a 90-day challenge together. And for the meal prep, I felt like, Heather said, I'll do all the meal prep for us. And I was so grateful for that, because I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to cook all the food and prep all my meals, and all I have to do is take them out, microwave them, and eat them? Oh, absolutely. I'm on board. I am really lucky. So to make it easier, I was like, okay, I'll just eat all gluten-free and dairy-free just to make it easier for the cooking and the prepping, because then you don't have to cook food for me, which could have gluten and dairy, then clean everything and then cook your own. And so it just made it easier. And I have to tell you, in that 90 days, actually it was like 120 days, because I continued another challenge after it. Essentially in that 90 days, I had lost 27 pounds, and then in about 100 to 120 days, had lost a little over 30 pounds that quickly. And certainly while the working out and the program helped, being gluten and dairy free, I think, was a huge contributor to that weight. And I have to tell you, huge increases in energy, right? And so I wasn't intolerant to the gluten. I didn't have any sensitivities. I didn't have issues with dairy at all. But I'm extremely grateful that you started the journey and that I had the chance to make that change with you. Because in doing that together, I now have literally transformed my body and transformed the inside of my body, because as my doctor told me when I got my medical annual done, that my blood results came back, and he was just like, your results are disgustingly good. They almost kind of like make me a little upset, because they're like too good. What did he say about my cholesterol?
It was the cholesterol of a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah, I was like, please tell me that that's not that my testosterone levels are not that of a 13-year-old girl. I guess that was supposed to be a compliment, but it was like literally to think my cholesterol levels had dropped that low, that all those blood markers had improved that much. And yes, exercise is important, but as you were going to discuss, like, you can't outwork a bad diet. Like, what's happening inside with the pesticides and the gluten and the dairy, what that's doing to your body. There's not enough running on a treadmill. If you've ever watched one of those YouTube videos of, I'll eat a whole pizza, and while I'm eating this pizza, somebody else will run on a treadmill to show you how much you actually have to run to burn off that pizza that you ate. We've all seen those. But I know you wanted to share a little bit about how, you're going to kind of start this on Monday.
Yep.
That you literally, just in the food alone, could make some massive changes to your body. So
I have a hip injury right now, and I can't do my typical cardio. I can't spin, I can't run. Doctors told me to keep working out, but both of those things give me a lot of pain, and I can't walk afterwards, so that's not really good for anybody's personal or professional life. So I'm doing a lot of yoga. Still hurts, but it's bearable. But yoga, just like gentle yoga, because I can't do anything really strenuous on it. It is very painful. So I have to be really diligent about my food. And so here is something I'm bearing out there for everybody to see. I do great on my food until after the kids go to bed. And then after the kids go to bed, I tend to have a glass or two of wine. And then I start to eat, and I mean, like,
We've all been there.
we've
Oh
all
my
been
gosh.
there. We've all done it.
So hard.
But it's just kept me in this place. And like so many people, I feel like I'm constantly trying to lose weight or keep from gaining. And the older I'm getting, the more I feel like I'm trying to keep myself from letting my weight rise and rise and rise. And because I'm not able to do the cardio right now, I'm really struggling to keep my weight from climbing. And I don't want that. It's not comfortable. Clothes don't fit. It's not a good feeling, right? So I am starting it's a new challenge with a different program. It's something I've been doing for a while, but I count my macros. So I count my grams of fat, grams of protein, grams of carbs every day. And I do great during the day, but typically at night I go off the rails. And so I'm giving up the nightly wine. This is...
But a video to follow
Yeah.
on what we changed our wine.
Yes.
We'll keep you on edge on that video. That video will come out about maybe just about the wine change.
Yeah, because
was huge.
It's not that we've completely given up wine. Wine is actually, in moderation, very healthy for you. For me, unfortunately, it triggers me to then eat. So today, Sunday, we have treat day. So this is another of my...
That's why you see the treat videos come out every Sunday, because we are really eating very clean, which took years to get to. In moderation, just try to get there a little at a time. But now, Monday through Saturday, it is super clean eating, very organic, whole, natural foods, not a ton of processed, nothing really processed.
No.
And no like real sugary treats. So Sunday, that treat review, that's why when we get something that we like, we're like, oh, this is so good. Because really we've gone all week, and it is nice to have that little treat. So the wine is kind of that.
It's a big treat. And it's why you'll see those videos from the car, because we get to the car and we can't wait to eat the treat until we're home. Because
just do it right there in the parking lot. Come
like,
on. This is a better place than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Let's do it here.
So, but I'm going to share a lot of that journey and the struggles that I have over the next month or so, trying to keep the weight from climbing as I have to exercise less intensely and have to really watch my food. And so I hope, my hypothesis is that I can prove that that the diet is the main factor. And we know this from science, but I want to show it to my friends and make myself the guinea pig, that truly it's not about how hard you're working in the gym so much. It is the food. Yes, the working in the gym, it absolutely helps, but that it's the food. I think they say, 80 or 90% of it is your diet?
Absolutely. 80% of the success you're going to have will come from the food and nutrition.
So that is my hope, is that over the next month or so, I can show that even with the reduced activity, which is scary because it's a mental struggle too. I hadn't been able to get in a workout for like 5 days, and it was not fun for anyone in this house because you got to get it out. So I plan on sharing all that over the next month or so. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's just so many cool things that we've learned. We're really excited to share them with everyone. There's things we've learned about the working out and the mental transformation, the mental change. There's things we've learned about the food that we want to just share with people, about the wine. We've gotten a lot of cool information and science from a lot of experts. Obviously, we're not the experts in all these areas, so there's some really cool people we want to share with you that we've found and heard about the research and science that they're doing, things that has to do with estrogen and how that's affecting us, which
Cosmetics.
has been unbelievable for changes in our lives. And so there's just so much science out there for longevity, and we're doing everything we can to be young and healthy, Heather's young, but I'm old. I was in grad school forever before I had kids, so I need to try to stay young as I can
Like
to
2
keep
years
up
older.
with these kids we have who are just getting faster every day. So any way we can kind of increase longevity, I'm all for it. I know we're excited,
Yeah.
and excited to share you with a bunch of stuff. But kind of insight into the start of our journey, Heather's start, and I'm so grateful that you did it. Because without you doing it, I know I wouldn't be where I am now. So thank you for that, my love.
Cheers.
And yes, we will. We're gonna try to put out a video, at least one each week, sharing some of these things. We love to hear your questions.
Post them in the
Again,
comments.
we're not experts when it comes to everything, but what's kind of been interesting is sometimes you read a lot about things, you read a lot about science, but then you actually don't know or have actually seen or talked to anyone who's actually even done it.
Yes.
And I think the personal experience of what to go through it, to hear what it was like for you to go through it and the change and how it made you feel, how it's made me feel. I think sharing the experience is something that people can hopefully benefit from and relate to.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
All right.
Well, this was fun.
This was fun.
Our first one.
Yay, we did it.
Well, thanks for watching and listening. Send us any questions you might have, and we'll be providing some other cool videos on some cool information.
Till next week.
Cheers, everyone. See you
Cheers.
next week.